There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment, and here we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. By the way, Brachelle, we've got a wonderfully gifted man. We are so lucky to have him. He's got 9 books out. They're all of the genre that I subscribe to wholeheartedly. So if you're listening to this and you're on YouTube or wherever you are, call your friends, call your neighbors, call even people you don't like all that much, because they can be helpful. We can help them with the conversation that we're about to have with Robert Atkinson. He goes by Bob, but if you look on his books, all 9 of them, it's Robert Atkinson. So we want to make sure we get that out. Brachelle, how are you today, by the way?
I'm doing pretty good, Kevin. We've had lots of high energy flowing through our day, so it's easy to stay going when you have that.
It is indeed. Would you like to introduce Bob?
I would love to. Well, Bob is here. Thank you for being here so much. We cannot wait to have this conversation with you. But how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to be with both of you.
Well, and Bob, I have to ask you, because you and I are come from approximately the same period in time, which goes back a little ways, because you remember the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and so forth and stuff. But tell us a little bit about your story on how you got into doing the writings that you do and the deep belief that you have on the oneness of man and women, and to take care of each other and to be kind with one another. How did that begin for you?
Begin with the origin story of, so that's a bit of a long story, and I actually wrote a memoir about that time, that transformational time in my life, which was really in my mid-20s. But it goes back before that, even to some experiences I had with when my grandmother was staying with us when I was a young boy, around 9. My grandmother came to stay with us for part of the year, and at that time I didn't really know too much about what was going on, but I was observing my grandmother, and she had this daily routine of going to her room and just being quiet and reading the sacred scriptures and praying. And I really didn't know what that was about, and was wondering. That's what really started my curiosity about what a deeper life might be, or whatever that meant to a 9-year-old. And many years later, that experience and a couple of others along the way, including spending as much time in nature as I could as a young child. We had some nice woods and a stream nearby where I grew up, and I just loved spending time in nature as a young child too. And so by the time I got to college, the only thing I realized that I really wanted to major in was philosophy. So I took philosophy as my major, and had no idea what I was going to do with it, and didn't end up using it directly, but it was the foundation for a whole process and a series of experiences and adventures that came a few years after college, when I began, and this was also after a master's degree in American folk culture And so by that time, I had a foundation of philosophy and was interested in folklore and mythology and comparative religion. And I was in my expanding mind at the time. I was integrating them all together, trying to see and make sense of everything that I was experiencing. And right around that time, in my mid-20s, I had some experiences of that really helped, that really kind of moved that process along rather quickly. And it began actually with the process of it really becoming something that I was much more aware of, started with the moonwalk in July of 1969. I was a summer camp counselor at the time, and all of us counselors and campers were in the dining hall focused on this tiny TV watching the moonwalk as it happened. And as Neil Armstrong touched down on the moon, and just thinking about that, reflecting on that beyond the technological feat, it was the first time that I literally saw that the Earth has no boundaries, that there really aren't nations in this planet we live on. There's only the Earth itself. And that set me off on a whole series of further realizations and awakenings, understandings that were helped by the being in the right place at the right time to reconnect with Pete Seeger, who had just launched his replica of a Hudson River sloop, and he named it Clearwater because its purpose was to clean up the Hudson River, which it did over the years. But he invited me that same summer, a month later, after the moonwalk, he invited me to be a crew member on the maiden voyage of the sloop Clearwater, sailing from New York City to Albany. And that was an incredible experience. I ended up being the only non-singing crew member. There were other crew members that he had invited because they were his singing friends, like Don McLean and Ramblin' Jack Elliott and a bunch of others that aren't as well known. And I just got to experience that voyage with them and learned so much from the captain, who was also a singer from Florida and the Bahamas, and he had some great Caribbean songs to share. But the weekend that we arrived in Albany was also the weekend of Woodstock. So the captain said to a few of us, he says, "I'm going over to Woodstock to see my old friend David Crosby. Anybody want to come with me?" And so I went with him and a couple of others went over. We arrived at Woodstock in the middle of the night, early morning. And, you can see the rest in the movie, but that was the experience that I had there. Not only sailing on the maiden voyage, but also attending Woodstock. And then that fall, I got Pete Seeger helped me get a cabin that was available that he knew the owner of that was right kind of on the river in the woods, a small one-room cabin that he helped me get because I was going to be doing some research for the sloop restoration on the history of the sloops, and that meant that I was going to be. We got a grant to do a research project. I ended up interviewing many family members of old sloop captains, but all of that was just the beginning of a process that where everything came together. And then another piece to that was after I couldn't stay in the cabin any longer because of winter, it wasn't winterized. I ended up, all of this detail is in my memoir, but I ended up being given a cell in a nearby Franciscan monastery where I learned all about a new sacred tradition that was totally new to me. And one time from there, I decided to go into the city just to see what was going on. And totally by chance, I was walking along 8th Street and looked into the 8th Street bookstore window, and a book in the window drew me in. I found that, I picked it up, began reading it, and then I glanced up at a bulletin board right in front of me, and I noticed a poster about a talk being given by Joseph Campbell, whose book I was reading that moment. And it was a talk that night, just a couple of blocks away at Cooper Union. So I went over and to Cooper Union, sat down in this huge hall, and Joseph Campbell began speaking as if I was the only one in the room at the time, because what he was saying was about the journey that I was experiencing. I at that point, I had known a little bit about mythology and wanted to know more. That's why I went to the talk. But he made it totally clear to me that my experience that I was living out in my life at that time was my personal experience of what he had written about in his now classic work, Hero with 1,000 Faces. So I got to meet Joseph Campbell after that talk, and he became another mentor. And all of those things together really just set me clearly on that path to not only discovering myself in a much deeper way, but in a way that, more importantly, connected me to everyone else around me in the world, really. And
well, Robert, a couple of things. First of all, I got to say, Brichelle's experienced this with her grandmother, that our grandparents, and if you are a grandparent, please give your children and your grandchildren the benefit of your wise years and experience, because it affects all of us in a very unique and powerful way. And Bob, I want to see if you remember this. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Who said it and when?
yeah, that's what Armstrong said when he touched down on the moon, and that is the one of the most famous lines of the 20th century.
And that's why I remember it, because it was. And the interesting thing is I was watching the little TV screen at the same time you were watching that TV screen, but I was in a totally different place. Yeah. and stuff. So and Bob, your story and the people that you've met, from Seeger to Arlo Guthrie to do you ever, looking back on your life, do you ever think in terms of, man, have I been on a ride? And Joseph Campbell and all of those, have you considered that within the confines, when you're sitting quietly in your house or wherever you are, and you're thinking about the totality of who you are? Does it ever dawn on you?
Always. Now that wonder has been embedded within me from that time on and hasn't ever left me. So yeah, I'm totally amazed by the life I've been able to live, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to write the memoir that I wrote about it, to be able to pass that experience on to others, and in any other way that I can. So since that time that I was just talking about, I have written a number of other books that
you have 9. That number would be 9.
Well, there's actually a couple more than that.
I'm sorry. I was looking at your website and stuff.
All right. I may have to update that, but I think that with the latest book that just came out in August, that makes the 12th book. But what I've tried to do with all of those books really is to share some little piece of the experience, as well as the wonder and the awe that I've had about being able to live the life that I have. So thanks for recognizing that too.
Well, and we need to take a break, and when we come back from this, I'm sure Burchell would love to ask you a question and get involved with this, because the experiences that you've had, I personally believe, and we'll talk about this more when we come back, that we are all entitled and destined to have those kind of experiences if we know how to look for them. Can we talk about that a little bit when we come back?
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Here's another point to ponder from Positive Talk Radio. What is the easiest thing to justify? It is a small transgression. The one no one will ever see, no one will ever know. The tiny exaggeration on the expense report. The extra minute you took on your lunch break. The packaging you tossed in the wrong recycle bin because it was closer. In those moments, the question isn't, will I get caught? The question is, will I know? It isn't about avoiding punishment. It's a silent agreement you make with yourself when you choose to do the right thing. To return the wallet. To fix the mistake. To respect the empty space. You aren't impressing the world. You're earning your own respect. That small choice, made entirely in private, is how you build a life you never have to look away from. The only audience that matters is you. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Burchell is right there. And I know Burchell. One of the things, Bob, I have to tell you, I love about Burchell is she's younger, but she's got grandparents, and she's even got a great grandfather who's still living. And so she loves talking to people about history in the past, don't you, Burchell?
Yeah, it's exciting and it's fun. And sometimes we think that we've got it all together and we got to have control of our life and all these fun things when you're young, right? But when you talk to older people who have the experience and the wisdom to kind of help you ground yourself and remind you that what you're doing in the present moment is really the only thing that matters, and hearing about experiences and stories and just having a broader understanding of life, and knowing how to manage it, and maybe some things to avoid as well, that we could tend to run head on into, that my great grandpa would be like, oh, no, you got to watch out for that. And I'm like, okay. So Kevin, I really want to hear Bob's answer to your question. So do you remember what you said?
Remind me. That was so long ago.
You said about, we suck at this.
It was, well, first of all, let me ask you, because many things have happened in my life that I thought were random. And it turned out that they weren't so random after all, because in the course of your life, as with all of our lives, we have a choice. We get to pick what we want to look at and what we want to have presented to us. I'll give you an example. When you picked up the book by Joseph Campbell, and then you looked up and you saw the poster that he was going to be speaking 2 blocks away from where you were standing at that particular moment. And some people might say, well, gee whiz, that was a coincidence, wasn't it? I take a different view. I don't think coincidence had anything to do with it. Do you agree with that?
I do. Short answer. Longer answer. Well, first, I just wanted to say, Burchell, thanks for your perspective on that as well. And I can tell already that you're an old soul, even in a young body, being part of this whole thing here with Kevin. Yeah, we definitely do have, I mean, it's an interesting conundrum, sort of, because we clearly have free will, but at the same time, we are given moments that matter what choice we make with that free will. And sometimes we make a choice with our free will in moments like you just referred to there, where I had the choice of either saying, oh, isn't that interesting? He's talking a couple of blocks away. Maybe I'll see him some other time. Or knowing right away that, no, this is my opportunity. I've got to get the book and go right over there now. That's a choice that I made in a moment using my free will. But at the same time, we could see that as something else deeper within us operating in a way that we may not even be aware of. That's guiding us toward making that right choice in that auspicious moment. So it's an interesting blending and merging of some different kinds of things. But even if we do call it free will, there could at the same time be something deeper within us that's guiding us toward making what we realized maybe years later was the right choice.
At that particular moment in time, because and let me propose this to our audience, and that is this: we have free will, and we can determine what we are going to do. However, we are given opportunities, and we are given the opportunities to make that decision of whether, because you made that decision that you were going to go, I'm going to go see him. You could have, using your free will, you could have said, no, I don't think so. It's late and I don't have the money, or whatever it is. But I'm willing to bet that over time, you would have been given opportunities like that again and again and again, because your soul was interested in that information and interested in that movement. Does that make any sense at all to you?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense in that our soul knows what we want and what we need as well. So that's the key. That's really what I was referring to earlier about when our free will is connected to and in harmony with our own soul. That's when we know we've made the right choice in whatever moment it is, because that's what we're ultimately being connected to, is the soul that is there with us all the time to guide us in the direction that's going to serve us in the best way to achieve our innate potential and capacity and keep us moving in the direction that we were intended to go in the first place.
Rochelle, what do you think about that? Is that a strange concept, or do you buy into it?
I totally get it. I've been wrapped around the idea of this since before I really even understood it. So it all confirms everything that I already know. And I have to ask you this, Bob, because I was having this conversation with myself actually last night, and there is a point to where I think a lot of people struggle. It can't only be me, because being on the show with Kevin, hearing so many perspectives, I can see all these different views. I can understand them. I can have everything laid out on the board. But then it all comes down to almost black and white. Like, don't take life so seriously. It's just have fun with it, and don't be so serious, And then there's those people that are like, everything that you do matters. Every choice you make, every step that you take, every thought that you have, everything you do all day, every day matters. And I am finding myself kind of merged into that gray. Um, because I understand both perspectives. How do you see that? What is your view?
Yeah, what a great example. I mean, it can sound like there are almost two different things going on at the same time, but we could also see that as two aspects of the same thing happening within us and for us. And so, yeah, it becomes the way that that dilemma sort of that you describe makes sense to me, is that it's not an easy path to follow where our soul wants us to go. Because there are going to be distractions that come along to try to, direct us in a different way, or I mean, we can all think of so many examples of that kind of thing in our life where we thought we wanted to go one place and something else comes along to take us in a different direction. But what matters most there is remaining aware and conscious of our connection to our soul, which is our guide in that process. And when we can understand that that's what we really most deeply want to do, is follow where our soul is leading us, then that's where and how the two merge, and how they can be both serious and fun at the same time, because they ultimately are. I mean, it's not, we don't, on one level, we're told, and we may already think this ourselves, as you indicated, that we don't want to overthink things in our lives. And we also don't want to be too lackadaisical or whatever about what's going on in our lives. So there is a merging there, a common ground between the two. And that common ground, I think, is where our soul is ultimately trying to guide us anyway.
Okay. I'm just going to let it merge, Bob.
because and Bob, the interesting thing about what you just said is that there are different aspects and different perspectives you can have on it. As an example, my perspective is that I'm working to live the life that I wanted to create for myself long, long ago. Does that mean it's perfect and cherries and rainbows all the time? No, sir. But I take every experience for what it's given to me, and I hope for the absolute best from every experience, and to learn from them. And because that's what we're here, in my opinion, that's what I'm here to do, is to learn and to talk to people like you who have spent your entire life doing this, and thinking deeply about how we are all one, and that we are connected in a very fundamental way that some people are not aware of yet, and that kind of thing. So, and that's why I love having these conversations with someone as learned and has been thinking about this for as long as you. And by the way, you knew Arlo Guthrie and you knew Bob Seeger. Those are pretty cool people.
Yeah, those were all great experiences, and that's what I also wonder about and am in awe of, is how I was able to be in the right place at the right time without even thinking about it or knowing it until later. But yeah, those were.
And Bob, I would say that not only were you at the right place at the right time, that you were guided there. Now, it may not be a conscious thing. It may not be like you got a note from the other side or from your soul. It said, turn right here at this particular moment in time. But it was an important aspect of who you are and the learned, the things that you have learned over time that you are now through your 12 books are imparting to other people. And so that maybe you can shorten the learning curve for somebody else who can read your writings and then be able to say, it resonates with me. That makes a great deal of sense. And well, before we take our next break, which we have to do real quick, I want to introduce our favorite Kenyan person. Is it Kenyan? He's from Kenya anyway.
Yeah.
And Bob, this is Samuel from, and Rochelle, go ahead.
Hi, Samuel. He says, greetings, Brother Kevin, my sister from another mother, Rochelle, and guest Robert Atkinson received greetings from Kibera slums in Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks. The electricity is back. We are watching this favorite program, Positive Talk Radio Show. We love you, team. God bless you. Mwah, we love you, Samuel, all of you and your team, all the kiddos. And thank goodness the electricity is on. Stay tuned for the rest of our show because Bob is an extraordinary human.
And a wonderful guest and an author. And we highly recommend that you go to his website, which, Rochelle, is?
Yes, it is robertatkinson.net. And you can get all the information about the books and read about him as well. So take a look at that before we come back.
And, you know, years ago, Bob, and I don't know if you know who Neil Donald Walsh is.
Oh, yeah.
And I was reading Conversations with God. And I was a concept goes back in like 2002, 2001. And it was a concept that I had never even considered. And I think many people don't consider it until you look at it on the face of it. And he said in Conversations with God that God had a conversation with him. And one of the things that God said is, we are all one. I read that. And I put the book down and I said to myself, holy crap. And I really did say, holy crap. If we all subscribe to that and believe that to be true, that we're all connected and that we are all one, it would change the world. It would change everything about what we do. And when we come back, I want to ask Bob about that because he's written extensively about that in all of his books. So we'll be right back right after this station break.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. It's Rochelle. That's her. She's here. And Bob Atkinson is our guest. And Rochelle, his website again is?
Yes, robertatkinson.net has all the books and the information. I have to ask you, Bob, before we get into Kevin's question, what sparked you even writing the first book? Did someone come to you and say, you need to write this book?
That's a great question. Actually, my first book goes way back to the time just after the period that I was talking about in the beginning, which was my memoir. And the part that I didn't get to in talking about those early years was that after I met Joseph Campbell, a month or so after that, I decided it was time to go back out to the college that I had graduated from 3 years before, which was Southampton College out on Long Island. And I went out there and I was wandering through one of the new buildings that was just built and on campus. And I ran into an old professor of mine and we started talking. He was asking me what I was doing and everything. And I told him everything I just mentioned earlier. And he ended up saying, well, you may be able to help us out. We're scheduled to teach a course that the instructor can't teach because he needs to take time off for whatever it was, finishing his dissertation. And because of my experience sailing with Pete Seeger and meeting the other folk singers and my interest in folklore, folk culture, he said, would you be interested in teaching a course on the poetry of folk rock lyrics? And I said, that sounds interesting. And I took a couple of seconds to think about it and said, well, sure, what the heck. So I spent, and it was very short notice. This course was supposed to begin really soon after that. I spent all that time preparing the course, getting the song lyrics together that I was going to use for that course. And so it was a short course, and we ended up spending our time listening to the folk rock songs and lyrics of that time. People like Joni Mitchell and Carly Simon, James Taylor, everybody from that period. And what I did with them is I put them in the framework of the mythological journey of the hero to show that even people today, like the songwriters of today that we all know and we all connect with their song lyrics, even they experience the pattern of the journey of the hero or heroine in their own lives because it's right here. It's so clear in the lyrics. And so after that course, I decided, well, I can't let this go. This was an incredible experience, sharing and listening to each other's reflections on those lyrics. So what I did was, my first book was a creation from that course, an anthology of folk rock lyrics as poetry. And that was published in 1974 as a mass market paperback, but it had all those lyrics and some excerpts from Joseph Campbell's book to guide the readers and illustrate how there was much more to the lyrics than we think we were hearing when we listened to the songs. So anyway, that was the first book, and it was a result of having taught that course at that time. But that got me started on a continuing course that led to another book of quite a few years later on what I called personal myth making. And so what I did with that next book, which was called The Gift of Stories, I put the pattern of the hero's journey into a framework and a context that people could use to find and tell their own story from their own life experience as it reflects that ageless universal pattern. So that first book led to many others on following a similar theme on personal myth making, and it went on from there to other topics like transformation and consciousness. And
that sounds so fun. Kevin, you need to write a book.
I know they keep telling me that, and I need to get to it. But Bob, when you look at that, if you were to write a script and you were going to have the culmination of that script being this interview, and you were talking about all the things that seem at first blush a little random. As an example, you go see Joseph Campbell. He becomes a mentor of yours. Then you go to your school that you hadn't been in 3 years. You meet a professor and you're talking to him about stuff. And it comes out that you're doing this. And he says, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you do this? And so you do that and you do the research for it. And then you conduct the class. And then you write a book about that adventure to do that, which led to other books, which led to... Do you see that there's no randomness involved in a lot of that was all? But the key to it was you said yes. When he said, I want you to teach this class. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm not a teacher. That's where free will comes into play. And because you were given the opportunity to say yes or no, and you said yes, I think that is one of the biggest affirmations that you can have, is to say yes to the universe. Do you agree with that?
Of course. That's probably the most important question and answer that any of us can have for any time in our lives ever, is just being able to say yes to the universe. And knowing when that question is being asked, and maybe even better, why it's being asked, but not flinching at all about the answer to it, and just getting it out there pretty much as soon as you have a second to digest it. Yes, of course. And the lesson there is not just for any, for me and the things that I was able to do in the way that I did them for my life. But the lesson really is that that whole process and experience and way of responding to the universe is within every one of us. And that's what I think that's what young people, especially today, need to recognize. And remember that question is being asked of us all the time, and we need to be able to be bold and clear with ourselves about how we really want to answer that. So the lesson really is for all of your listeners to just to remember that we all have that capacity, that capability, and that potential, and that destiny embedded within us. And when we recognize that and say yes to the universe when those times come along, we will be living out our destiny and bringing it into being.
And Bob, I have to tell you this real quick story. A couple of years ago, I was talking with my life coach, and my life coach and I were talking about it, and she said, well, there's somebody that also works with me, because I was looking for an assistant at that time, somebody. So she tells me, well, I'll get in touch with her. And that individual, when my life coach called her, she was a lunch lady at the local middle school, and she loved that job. And most of the kids are taller than her, by the way, but she loved that job, and she was doing that. And then I come along and I say, well, would you like to be an assistant? She had the ability. She could have said, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I like being a lunch lady. But she said yes, because that was in her intuition, in her heart. She's sitting right next to you on the screen right now, Bob.
Great. So
yep. And it was on my end. I simply I loved what I was doing, but I knew that there was more, and I didn't know what that was, but I was ready. And so I said yes to all possibilities after being through the roughest time of my life. And it was a sense of just knowing. It wasn't something I felt like I had to question or understand. It was just, yes, this is right. And I followed it, and I haven't left Kevin's side for 2 years, and it's it's changed my life completely, and I'm like right in the dead center of that journey. So it's fun to hear you guys talk about your experiences and your things, because it helps me and people of all generations that are younger to pay more attention. Just look and see what is already right in front of you without having to think about things or analyze them or understand them. I do things all the time that don't make any sense. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I see why I did that. So all good things in time. And sometimes it just takes a little longer. Kevin understands that.
Yes, indeed. And by the way,
Yeah.
Bob, when I was a kid, I used to sing, going back and forth to the store, Don McLean's song that
Yeah.
became such an anthem for an entire generation. And what was the name of that song again?
American Pie.
American Pie. We need to take our last break, and we'll be right back. And remember, we also do a music show on Brushwood Media Network. Not every song changes you, but the right ones do. At Greatest Vibes Unplugged, we share music that hits deeper, no filters, no noise, just pure sound with soul. This is your reminder that light still exists, and sometimes it sings. And remember, you can look up in the sky and see the stars, but still not see the light. And welcome back to Positive Talk. And Bob Atkinson is with us. Rochelle is here. And by the way, Bob, that part of that commercial was a lyric that the Eagles did. You can look up in the sky, but still not see the light. Sometimes, and you mentioned this in your works, sometimes I think lyrics are divinely inspired. Your thoughts, sir?
That's for sure. Yeah. And that's another kind of thing that we have to be on the lookout for, is when we, all of us, any of us, are being inspired by what you refer to as divine wisdom, or because it does come, we're all made to be receptors of that. And so we're all capable of receiving that kind of divine wisdom, and it can come to us at any moment, and in so many different ways, as a song lyric, as a poem, as a novel, whatever way that we're meant to receive that. And that's another example of why it's so important for young people, especially people of all ages, to be aware of everything that's happening to us every moment, so that we don't miss those moments when we are given that divine inspiration. Because it's meant to not only guide us and fulfill us as a creative being, it's also at the same time meant to help guide others too. I mean, that song that you just mentioned and so many others, even American Pie, how crazy that might sound to some people, or how incomprehensible it might seem, that has also been a song that's guided and inspired a generation, as you mentioned. So there's so many ways that can come out. And it's like not only being a receptor of that divine inspiration, but being able to, if we're the creative types, being able to express it in whatever way we can best do, but knowing at the same time that if there is a message in the words, that it's going to be heard and received by the people who need to hear it. So there's so many different ways that kind of thing can happen.
It is truly amazing. And one of the songs that Rochelle and I share is, and you never would think Now, I love Metallica, but you never would think that they'd have anything intelligent to say in a lyric other than, yeah, and all that stuff. But in one of their songs that I dearly love, it's Forever Trust in Who You Are and Nothing Else Matters. And Michelle knows that one. But Michelle, I wanted to ask you, I'm struck, you got a couple of old guys sitting here talking to you. And I'm curious to know if you are as excited for your future and all the wonderful things that are going to be presented to you over time as I am for you. And I know Bob would say the same thing.
I am starting to now, because of being able to have so many perceptions of things and then figure out, okay, well, what do I believe and who am I and what are my values and why are they changing and all those fun things. It's exciting because it's free. I feel free. I don't feel restricted. I don't feel like I'm in a box. I don't put myself, I don't restrict my own self. And I think we naturally, as humans, do that to ourselves. And then the world around us becomes very restricting. And Kevin, you mentioned something that really, I love having these conversations with you guys, no matter the age, because you understand that everything is life. Like the plants have vibrations and they feel things, the bugs and the bees and the birds and and we don't really, our younger generation, it seems like, doesn't really have that same tune and the same sense and understanding. And we've kind of put ourselves in our own bubbles and our own worlds, and we get to be whoever we are, and we don't care about everybody else. But through these conversations, I believe that's how we're going to change it. And that's what excites me the most.
Bob, what do you think? Don't you wish? I'm sitting here looking and thinking, can't I be 26 again, please? And know what I know now. Do you feel the same way?
Not exactly. I mean, because I know that things move forward, not backward, from where we are. Even though it may seem, in some moments or times, like now, for example, that we seem to be moving backward collectively. No, things are designed to move forward, and that's about one of the that may be one of the most important things that guys like us can pass on to people who might be 26. Not that we want to go back and live those years over again, but that we've experienced some things that are, that may be universal, that may be timeless, that may be just something that somebody who is younger needs to be reminded of, because that's what our process, that's what our journey is really all about. It's remembering who we are. Mm. We're always we always say that we're in a process of discovering who I am. And at the same time, though, that is really a process of remembering who we really are, especially at our essence. And so that's what it comes down to for me. It's not a matter of wanting to go back in my own life to a certain time, even though the times that I did just talk about with you were amazing times. They always live within me, and they always continue to inspire me to pass on the insights and learnings and lessons that I've gained from them to others who may be at a point in their lives where that's what they might need, even though they may not be aware of that right in the moment. But it is a process of remembering, because when we do remember who we really are, as you were saying earlier, Michelle, that's when we remember that things are beginning to feel right for us. Mm-hmm. Like we fit where we are, and we not only fit where we are, we have a purpose to live out where we are. So we can be we can be God. I mean, it's our, talking to Kevin and I now, it's our role, as you're doing, as with your show, it's our role to be guides to others in whatever way that we've learned has helped us to get where we are. And so that becomes, the thing about that process is that it becomes cyclical. It's a never-ending cycle of learning and passing it on, and somebody else learning and them passing it on. And eventually, and this is what has happened over centuries and millennia, through that process of learning and learning over the next generation, learning the essentials, the universals of life, collectively we have evolved consciously to a place where we are actually to a place that has been long promised to every generation throughout time. And that's why I wrote my latest book, to focus on that ultimate destination of where we're all headed.
And Bob, the name of that book is, because we're going to run out of time, but the name of your latest book that we want to promote.
The Way of Unity. It's here, essential principles and preconditions for peace. But the idea of that is that, I mean, this book really provides a way to understand what a global vision can offer to this world today. The book actually offers a strategy for bringing a divided humanity together, and a way to realize collective harmony that will lead to planetary flourishing. So I wrote that because it's something that I really feel the world needs now, and it's filled with local strategies that are globally scalable. So it's something that it's a book that we can apply to our own lives wherever we are, while knowing that we're part of a process of scaling strong, vibrant, unified communities, scaling that to become a global reality.
And Rochelle, that you can find that on Bob's website, which is...
Yes, go to his website, which is robertatkinson.net. He has all the other books that we didn't even get to touch on and talk about in there, but I'm guessing from the first book to the last. And Bob, do you work with people directly anymore, or are you just kind of staying in your own little zone?
Both. I still do a few, with the new book having come out in August, I've been doing a few book presentations, and the book does have a study guide. So it is designed to be used by groups or communities or book clubs to work together around. And that's something that I felt was needed as well, because of the digital world that we're living in. So much is done online these days that anybody anywhere could be reading this book and could get together with others anywhere and follow the study guide to really use it and get much more depth out of it. So it does have that, a built-in study guide for group use.
Awesome. And that's
we are excited about it. Exactly. And Bob, thank you so much for being here. And the name of the book again is that they can go and find anywhere.
The Way of Unity.
And it's not like we don't have any unity now. I'm sorry, we don't have any unity now. So we need Bob, we need some unity, and thank you for writing the book. And thank you for being here. Will you come back and see me again, or see us again? Because we got more to talk about.
Sure, it'd be great. Love to come back.
Perfect. Rochelle, would you like to take us out?
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for making this all possible, and Bob, so much for your time, your knowledge, and the passion of you understanding the fulfillment of life. So we love you as always. I cannot wait to see you back here on the show with us. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. Stay tuned, because we'll be back again for another great show.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.